So, good morning or good night, depending on where you are in the world, and welcome to another interview of the Shield Dude on a Couch. I'm your host, Hector, and today I'm joined by Jimmy Waldo, and Jimmy is the keyboardist for the band Alcatrazz. So, for those of you that don't know Alcatrazz, they're a band that started in the 80s. They had some different lineup changes, and then they took a hiatus. And a few years back, they returned and now they have a new album. I think it's their second album in 3 years, and it's called Take No Prisoners. So I'm here with Jimmy to talk all about it. So first of all, Jimmy, good morning. How are you today?
Good morning. I'm fine. How are you?
I'm very good. So
That's good.
yeah, I listened to this album, and of course, when you listen to this album, you can help but think of those glory days of the metal from the 80s.
Right.
Uh, But to me, that type of music has made the last few years, it's made a comeback. Especially, I think people want some music that sounds like people playing in a room, not like the traditional heavy metal of the past. So, how was it for you right now, so many years later, returning and doing Alcatraz music for you?
Uh, well, it's great. I've never stopped making records or being involved in production or playing keyboards on people's records, whatever. Uh, so to me, and as a fan, as a music fan, I've missed that as well. A lot of bands that I like, but I listen to them and it doesn't sound. It sounds very mechanical or very. It's put together in a computer, basically. And everybody has to do it that way now. There's nobody get all the whole band gets in. Very few bands are able to get in a room and play and record. The first Alcatraz record, No Parole from Rock and Roll, we did that way. We all actually we were at rehearsal and we learned the songs, and then the record company had a big complex, so we were in their rehearsal place. We just moved the gear next door into the studio. We set up and we just played and recorded, and then we went back and fixed things. But it was a band playing in a room together. Nowadays, it's extremely hard for anybody to do that. But I prefer that. I'm with the yeah. I would much rather be in a room and just learn the material, work on the material, all of us in a room and play it and record it live. And then yeah, you fix things or you add, overdubs and things, but basically the heart of the band would be great if you could just do it in a room like that. Um, this is close. What we do is close. I go to Boston and we cut guitars. Um, we get a drum track, and then Joe does the guitars, and but he plays them pretty much top to bottom. We don't get crazy, trying to make them too perfect. And Joe plays with a lot of attitude, and I love that. And so we start the song, and he's in record. I don't stop. I just let it go. And then if he makes a mistake or something obvious, then we'll stop and punch in. But typically, most of his performances are just top to bottom. And same with Doogie. This Doogie sings. He's always prepared, and you put him in record, and he just sings, and he'll sing at least a whole verse and a whole chorus, and sometimes he'll sing a song top to bottom. So we try to keep it as spontaneous as possible and old school as possible.
Yeah,
And
well,
I love that.
yeah, I don't know. I think like that way of recording where you're all in a room. I think first of all, you're gonna I think it would get done faster because you're biting off each other. So you see it's something like maybe you're doing something and the other one looks at you like, yeah, no, I'm not sure about that. Because if
Yes.
you're like sending files for a computer, you have to send the file, then you have to wait for another person to send the file. And it sounds more like a school project than a band to me.
It can sound like that, absolutely. That's why on this record, "Take No Prisoners," I flew to Scotland, and we cut vocals in Scotland, and then I flew to Italy to cut drums. So I was there, and the drums were played live right there. I recorded them. I took my microphones and recording gear, and we set up in our drummer's house in Italy, and cut drums. So tried to make it as real as possible, and it's pretty real. Everybody just played their parts. I mean, there was no, and we all get along really good. So everybody likes everybody else's playing and ideas. So there wasn't much of that file swapping going on. I got some files from the bass player and from Gary down in Florida, and I think one song I asked him if he could play a certain thing for me. I said, "Oh, this would be really cool if you could play that riff," and he replayed it and sent me that file. But basically, yeah, there really is no file swap, that tip. But I know bands that do that. They go crazy. They send, the guy gets a guitar player's file and then he doesn't like it. And then somebody else in the band likes it, but wants it changed to this, so it can be a nightmare. And I've been involved in some of those projects, not as a band member, but as a keyboard player or producer. And it's not fun.
Do you enjoy being a producer on music?
Not really, because it's
That's
a
an
lot.
honest answer.
It's a lot of work, and I prefer just being a keyboard player and a writer. Producing is, especially where you're in the band.
Mhm.
Because if I'm producing your band, and I come to Puerto Rico and I'm producing your band, and I don't like something, I can just say, "Hey, Hector, I don't like that. You guys need to work on that." And you don't like, you're like, "Well, Jimmy, we think we're playing really good." And I go, "I can disagree with you, because I don't have to play in the band with you, and you don't have to play with me." And then when we're done, I leave, and that's it. But when you play in a band with guys and you're producing, you can't, you just can't do that. Yeah, I can't say to Joe Stump or somebody, "I don't like that. Can you play that again?" Or, "Let's try that again." You start pushing, and then now you got a bad vibe with the guitar player. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I don't like being in the band and having to be a producer. So, and the truth is, Joe Stump doesn't need producing, and Doogie doesn't need producing. We've all done this for so long and made so many records, and once the songs are written, it's not much producing really. It's more like I'm a facilitator. I make it happen, but I don't tell anybody what to play or
Yeah.
sing.
So something good now is that keyboards are accepted in hard rock and metal, because I remember back when Jump came out, that it was criticized because instead of Eddie Van Halen playing the guitar, he was playing the keyboards, and at the time that was like
Yeah.
such a shocker. It's like, what do you think, being a keyboard player, like the sound of keyboards in hard rock and heavy metal music?
Well, I mean, there's a place for it, because the guitar, when you hear a three-piece band, or when I'm playing on a record and I hear the track and it's just guitar, bass, and drums, and then I put keyboards on it, and even if the keyboard is a very supportive part and it's mixed down, it adds so much, uh, for a lot of reasons. One, musically, hopefully I play a part that complements other things musically, which takes it to another level. And that's what a keyboard player's, that's one job. um, but also the tuning factor, and this is a big one to me. When I'm doubling a guitar part, or I'm playing the chords, the same chords as the guitar player, with like a really distorted Hammond, which I use a lot. um, it's not just, oh, there's a Hammond and there's the guitar player. It's the tuning anomalies between the two make the sound bigger, if that makes any sense. It's like when you double
Yeah.
or triple an instrument, it gets wider and bigger. Well, when I'm playing with Joe, I play chords, the chord changes with Joe, which isn't always easy, and but it makes it get bigger. So I think keyboards can add, but you definitely have to stay out of the way. You have to understand when it's a guitar song and it's a guitar band, which ours is, and you have to work around that. You don't just go, well, I'm the keyboard player, I want to be heard. You can't, it doesn't work that way. So you have to get used to that. But I've been playing with these kind of guitar players for so many years that for me, it's not a problem. I enjoy it. Um, Working with these guys. With Ingve, that was a lot of fun. Ingve and I wrote songs together, and we had a great time doing it. And he had he loved keyboards. So, but I knew I don't step on Ingve's solos. That's not, I should stay out
Yeah,
of the way.
I don't think that will go down well.
No, no, no. And it doesn't with anybody, Joe Stump
Yeah.
or Ingve or any Steve Vai, whatever. Everything has got its place. So when the guitar player is soloing, I should be a support. I should be the rhythm guitar player basically, and have a part that doesn't take your attention away from his solo. But that's just music. That's like classical music. It's the same thing. When the first violin's playing the main melody of the piece, the other instruments are supporting that. They're not trying to compete with the violin and play better or play the same part or whatever. So I don't know. I enjoy being a keyboard player in this genre of music. To me, it's a challenge, and I like a challenge. And I always enjoy playing with great players. It makes me a better player. So I love it.
Yeah, and talking about the keyboards on the album, like I can hear them, but like you say, they don't overpower the music. They like complement the
Right,
music. They're like different layers.
right.
Because I think the keyboard, I heard it. I think it's on every song, but there's a few songs that I could hear it more, and it really blended into the music, so it gave it that different layers. So I know that the album has some guest stars because you have a "Don't Get Mad, Get Even" with Girls School. How was working with Girls School on that song?
It was great. We had we had the song cut basically, and Doogie was singing the chorus, and he'd rewritten it a few times till he got it like he wanted it. And so he had what we okay, that's the done vocal. That's great. And then we were on tour with Girls School in Europe, and her manager said, "Wouldn't it be cool to have them sing just don't get mad, get even?" And so what a great idea. So we asked them, and they were like all over that. They loved the idea. So in my hotel room in France, I carry all my stuff with me. I mean, my laptop, which I'm on now, my studio. That's my live rig and everything. Um, I set up in my hotel room. I had a mic, Short 58, and we had a little speaker so you could hear the music better because I didn't have a headphone amplifier enough for everybody to wear headphones. The four girls came in. I played the track for them a few times. They sang it, and it's okay. Let's do it. So I gave them a mic, and it took about 20 minutes, and they sang
Yeah,
it top to bottom. They sang every chorus, from the beginning. So every chorus is a little bit different. I love it. So we were laughing. It was hard to work because we were all laughing. Fun. So really enjoy it. I've done that with them a couple of times, and it's great. They're such pros. They're funny. They seem like this real crazy bunch of girls. They got in it. You put the microphone up, you play the track, and they become one. They're so tight and so in tune with each other, and they just sang it great. They were right in the pocket. It was perfect. So it was a lot of fun.
yeah, and I think their vocals add to that, the punchiness of the chorus of like
Yes.
so
Yes.
it's good because you have the guy singing plus them, so it's like all of them are getting even. So yeah, and it's got that. I think that
Exactly
having
right.
them, yeah, having
Yeah,
them made the chorus, yeah, punchy.
really good point. Like all of them are saying, "Don't get mad, get even," and it just worked out. It's one of those things that just works. And Doogie loved it. Doogie was, because he had sung the chorus already, and we had some background vocals, and I'd sung some background vocals. We took all that away, and it's only the girls singing that in those choruses. It ended up being, but you're absolutely right. It was just perfect answer to the rest of the lyric in the song. It's great.
Yeah, and it's one of the catchier songs on the record. You have some power ballads on there, and you have you have a self-titled, an Alcatrazz song. Uh, when you're like, yeah, let's write a song called Alcatrazz. Uh, like, what took you so long to write a song called Alcatrazz, like the band?
Well, it sounds silly, and it seems obvious, but we never thought of it, of naming a song after the band. And so our manager, Giles, who co-writes with us, he said, I got this idea, these lyrics, and he told me the lyrics, and they were about the Alcatraz. And, Island in the Sun off the first record was about Alcatraz, just a different story. But so Giles wrote it from a different perspective. And he says, I think this should be called Alcatraz. What do you think? And we all heard it and thought, yeah, great idea. And we just did it. So it wasn't really like we want, oh, yeah, it's got to be named. We have to have a song named after the band. It was like, that's a cool name for the song. That's great. And it all works. So no big deal. We didn't overthink it, put it that way. We just kind of like, yeah, Alcatraz seems perfect. It's about Alcatraz. So, hey, we're allowed to do that.
Yeah, that makes total sense. So, which of the songs here on the album for you was the hardest to write and record?
The hardest to write. Well, the song "Strangers"
Yeah.
was yeah, it took a while to get that, because it's actually started as two separate songs. And
Okay.
and then we decided, at some point, well, we're going to do the heaven and hell thing and sort of make it one. We needed a long song. We wanted something like that, sort of an epic that changes tempo. Giles, our manager, says, man, you guys got to do something where the tempo completely changes. And so we thought, well, here it is. So the trick was finish writing the songs so that they fit together. Joe Stump wrote the music, and then we all kind of worked on the arrangement ideas. So the first song kind of ended very naturally, just a big, long, sustained chord. And so then it was just a question of where do we come in with the fast thing. But that was a challenge. And then when Doogie got done and was singing them, we had to think about, well, it's got to sound like one long song. It can't sound completely like two completely separate songs. We don't want to make it sound like we just edited two pieces together. So then it was kind of refined to be one long song. We had to put the two pieces together physically, but in the computer, but when we mastered, but it basically is one long song. And we were drawing from melodic ideas in the second half. We drew melodic ideas from the first half and reused them in the second half, so to sort of help tie it together. So, yeah.
Yeah, and it's got like that, like long ballad type of feel, but has some changes
Yeah.
to it. But yeah, there's a lot of songs here that are like anthemic, like Little Viper that starts the album, starts it like really good. You have battle lines, you have powering numbers. So there's a lot of like, it's a fast-paced album, and you end with Bring On the Rock. Only that
Yeah.
you spelled it Rawk.
Rawk. Yeah.
Why did you spell it that way?
That's Doogie. Doogie
Okay.
spelled it that way. I think Doogie had written a song years ago and used that spelling in the song. It wasn't titled that, but he used it in the song. So we were emailing back and forth, and Doogie sent some lyrics to us, and he spelled it that way. And we all said, that's funny, that's cool. I would never thought about it. And so when he sings it, he rock. He sings it like
Yeah.
there's a W in there. It's funny. Uh, so just yeah, it was just kind of worked out that way. But that was Doogie. Yeah.
Yeah, and it makes sense to close the album on that song, because you want to end the album like on a, on a
Yeah.
high note,
Yes.
on a rocking song. So I'm gonna show the artwork of the album for people who haven't seen it. So here we have the artwork for Alcatraz Techno Prisoners, and I like it because it looks like a movie poster.
And that was the idea,
Yeah,
actually.
yeah,
Uh, Again, our manager, Giles Lavery, kind of came up with that idea. He's really into 70s and 80s old horror movies and things. And so he's got tons of hundreds and thousands of movies. So we talked about that. Giles said, "Hey, wouldn't it be cool if it came off like a movie, looked like a movie poster?" So that was the idea. I'm glad that you you saw that. That's good.
yeah. It looks like those classic '80s movies, like uh, I love it where it says Rock Justice presents Techno Prisoner Alcatraz, and you have the names. And I
Right.
could just imagine like the slogan. You remember back in the 80s or 90s that they had because now the when they have the movie shorts, or they don't have, they used to have that voice like in a world. And
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
missed that guy who did like I thought that those were good because you had that guy overdubbing telling you what the story was about. They don't do that, like it hasn't been years, and I thought that was awesome to having that
Well,
person
yeah.
like
Me too. I love that. They always had a cool voiceover guy, a guy that really you got to feel, man, he really knew this. And he was just a hired guy that came in the studio and read a script, but he really connected with the movie, and I love that.
yeah.
You're right. I miss that.
So for your album, it could have been like in a world where 80s rock is making a comeback. You got Alcatraz, take no prisoners.
Right.
And
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
I love that. It makes sense. So yeah, right now I think music has come back around, and like with programs like Stranger Things, really like 80s music is like making a comeback. Like people are appreciating it, and it's good because I remember like I grew up more in the 90s, so I love 90s music, but I did listen to 80s stuff. But I remember like when the 90s came, like there was a time like it was like bad to sound like the
Yes.
sound that like had in the 80s, and a lot of bands like suffered through that. But I think that now like people don't care.
No,
And
and I think you're absolutely right. And it's kind of funny. A lot of people complain about the music business. They say, "Oh, it's changed so much. It's all downloads and streaming and stuff." And yeah, there is the negative part of it. But I've always looked at it like the glass is half full. I don't look. I look at it like there's other opportunities now. So we can reach more people quicker. When you put
yeah.
out a record now, people like yourself are interviewing me. Thousands of people will see this, as opposed to in the 80s when we put out the first Alcatraz record. If you didn't get your video on MTV,
Hmm.
nobody saw it. There was no YouTube, so nobody saw it. Um, and when you would do an interview, if you didn't do an interview with the biggest networks, nobody heard them. Nobody knew the record was out. And there was only a few outlets for that. I mean, you could be on tour and do an interview in Seattle at a big radio station, but that particular show that day might only have 500 listeners. And how many of them even care about what kind of you're doing? So now it's great. You have a following, people know you. All these people I do interviews with have their own audience, and it's 24/7. People can go look at that interview anytime. And I have friends that go through YouTube and they just constantly looking for interviews that we've all done. And you
Yeah,
didn't
and
used
it
to be able
stays
to do that.
on the internet. Back in the day, you did an interview, it aired maybe once, and nobody
Yeah,
saw it again.
right.
Uh, but I think you can find old interviews now. on YouTube.
Yes.
It's incredible the things that you can find now. Uh,
I know. It's
so if
amazing.
yeah, if people complain like, oh, it's easier, harder to, like, people that complain harder to find music. No, it's easier now.
Oh yeah.
Because also back in the day, you could listen to a song and maybe an album had one good song, and then you bought it, and the rest of the album wasn't as good as that song. But
Right.
now people can stream it, and if they want to buy it, then they buy it. So yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's a different
I
thing.
think a lot of things have changed for the better over the years, and I embrace it. I got into this technology when it first started, um, recording digitally and all that stuff. And it wasn't because I didn't like tape, recording on tape. It's just because I saw this as a cool way to record and make records, and it was a lot cheaper to do it this way, and you didn't suffer quality because of that. Um, but it still came down. It's still about the song and the performance. No matter what, I don't care how much money you got or you don't have. If you make a great recording and the band's playing great and everybody, the great songs, you're going to do well. It'll happen. You may not have a hit record, whatever that is, but these days, but people are going to know about you because of the song and the band, the vibe of the band, and that's never changed. It's always been that way. I mean, since the Beatles, it's
Yeah,
always been like that. And it doesn't matter
yeah,
what kind of Duran Duran. There was a while people in heavy rock made fun of Duran Duran. Those were great songs. Those guys wrote great songs, and that's why they were successful. So there's all these bands that a lot of people did in the '90s that a lot of people, from the '80s, rockers would, oh, I hate those guys, like the Cars. I was from Boston. I lived in Boston at the time, and when the Cars had their hit, I had a band called New England that was out about the same time, and everybody was going on about the car. They hated the Cars because of their artsy kind of vibe, and but the truth was, the Cars wrote great songs. Those were really good songs, and it's the same today. If you got really good songs and good performances, now the outlets for that are amazing. I mean, well, like here we are, you and I talking about this, and there's going to be thousands of people can hear this, and we'll turn them onto the music as opposed to a few hundred one time and you never hear from it again. So
yeah,
I really like it. I like that. And when you play live now, if we play in a small club of 200 people or 300 people, uh, I don't think of it like 300 people. I think of it like people all over the world because people are videoing with their phones
yeah,
and they're posting it immediately. So I'll play a show in Manchester, England on Friday, and Saturday morning I'm getting emails from my friends in the United States going, "Man, we saw your show last night. I saw a recording. That was great. Boy, that was really cool. Doogie did this thing." And so within minutes or hours, they know all about the show on the other
yeah.
side of the world.
When you think about it, it's like free publicity.
Yes,
Because yeah, you're getting
absolutely.
because the people that are recording that and posting them, they're not getting anything for that. Because I know there's some
No,
artists
no.
that think differently. For example, I went to a Tool concert in Miami when I was living
Uh-huh.
there, and they didn't allow you to record because they show uses some lights and they don't want people to
Yeah,
see it. But they allow you to record like the last song. But yeah, the singer's kind of like a dick to people. And like, I don't think, this is what I think. Like, even if they record parts of the show and post it, that does not mean that someone won't go to your show, because it's not the
no.
same watching it in a computer than watching the real thing. But I guess to each its own. But like, I like what you said. Like, I don't mind, because like someone will see, hey, I'm on tour, and they'll pass it, and maybe you will get newer people that have not heard of your band.
And that's exactly the way I feel about it. Is like, because my friends that I have a friend in North Carolina and he can't travel. So he'll watch stuff like that. He'll see postings of shows immediately. Then he texts me or emails me and he goes, "Man, I saw your show last night in Manchester. It was great, or Japan or wherever." And then he sends that to his friends, and he sends it to people that don't even know who we are. They like this kind of music, but they're not real Alcatrazz fans, or they're not familiar with the band. And Andy will send them stuff and say, "Oh, check out my friend's band, blah, blah, blah." So yes, it's free publicity. And a lot of bands are worried that, well, we didn't have a good night, Well, that's human. Maybe we didn't
Yeah.
play as good that night, or one song didn't come off as well, or the crowd wasn't as good. That's okay.
And right now, when you're playing shows, like, are you seeing like parents go with their children to see you?
um, you don't notice it, but I have met people after the show,
Mhm.
and these guys will come up to me, or a family will come up to me, and they just look like you don't know that person is their son. And so I've had people come up and go, "This just happened, actually. Man, my dad was a huge fan of your band in the 80s. And he when you guys were coming to town, he said, we got to go see you." And the kid is 25 years old and plays in a band. So he hears us and he goes, "God, you guys are awesome. I had no idea. I wasn't into what you were doing, and my dad turned me on to you." So, and then the mother will say the same thing. She'll go, "Yeah, I remember one of the first shows we went to was you guys. You played at the whatever, So it's really cool. So they're not little. When we in the band New England, we toured with Kiss, and you would see a father and a mother, and then you see little kids, and you don't see little kids anymore, or certainly not much. But the sons and daughters are all adults, and it just looks like a bunch of people. You don't know who's who, and
Yeah.
but some of them are a whole generation, and it's great. It's really, everything's evolved. The music business has changed, and everything grows, and I think it's really interesting. It makes it makes it really interesting.
Yeah, but it's interesting that you guys are putting out music, and next week we have a new Extreme album.
Right.
So they're also, and I saw an interview of Nuno, and they're playing awesome. So I think it's good that we have those type of bands playing again and coming back again, because we need different styles of music. Like
Yes.
like it can't everything be modern metal. We need like
Yes.
different. It makes it more interesting. So you have the album out. It came out a few weeks ago in May. Do you have some do you have some tours coming up?
Yeah, we have a show, one show in France in August, a festival we're playing over there, around. I can't pronounce the name of the town, but it's close to Nice.
Is that
Um,
Heaven and Hell Festival? I think that's in France. No, I'm not sure what's the name of the festival in France. Yeah.
yeah, I can't. The name escapes me right now, but we're doing that, and then we're on schedule to go to South America for a couple of weeks. Right after that, within a few days, and then after that, we're doing. Hopefully, looks like we're going to tour in the States in November, and then finish the States after the first of the year. We'll take a break during December, Christmas, and then sort of do the West Coast and then do the East Coast, Eastern half. And then we're going back to England after that.
You guys are gonna be busy.
Oh yeah, we're always busy. It never stops. Because we're always writing. Anyway, I mean, Joe write. Joe just sits with a guitar and writes songs. He doesn't. He doesn't just sit and practice scales. Joe plays music. We'll sit and he'll just pick up a guitar and play, and I'll go, "Well, that's really cool. What is that?" And he goes, "I don't know. I just will start playing it as a cool riff. I like this riff," and that's the way a lot of these songs started. It's funny because it is like old school. It's the way we used to make music in the 70s, where a guy would just sit around and play, and you go, "Man, that's great. That's a great idea. And I've heard that Metallica does that. They jam in their dressing rooms and stuff, and come up with riffs. And somebody will say, "Oh, riff number 6. Check out riff number 6. That's a great riff." And that's a really good. It's a good way to write, instead of just like one guy writes a song and sends it out, and the band go, "Okay, here's the song. You got to do that." It gets written with everybody's input a little bit, which is not necessarily everybody in the same room getting to play and record, but at least if, like when we're on tour, we cut some of these demos. We had 5 days off in England, and so we recorded. I set up my rig, and that we rented an Airbnb over just north of Liverpool, and Joe's got a little guitar rig that he brings with him, a little mini Marshall about this high, and have a microphone, and we wrote some. That's where the song Alcatrazz was written, was there. Giles and I and Joe did that. And then Doogie heard that and immediately started getting ideas, and Giles and he collaborated on that. So yeah, it's I enjoy the technology now, but
Yeah.
it is more interesting. There's a lot of bands putting out. Winger just came out with a new record that's amazing, and
Oh, they did. Yeah, like a month ago.
I love Winger. Everything about that band is just killer. And the same with Extreme. They blow me away. His guitar playing, but their writing, their band, those guys are amazing. So it is great. There's a lot of good music out there. A lot of great bands making records that you haven't heard from in a while.
As it should be. Like people
Yes.
it should be like we should have different styles of music so everyone can listen to different
Yes.
styles. So Jimmy, I'm gonna take any more of your time. I know you're a busy
All right.
man.
I enjoy it.
But it's been great talking to you about Take No Prisoners, about the evolution of music and keyboards in hard rock and music, because I think that's interesting. If you're a keyboardist, what do you think about keyboards in this style of music matters? So people, Alcatrazz Take No Prisoners is out now. I'll post the link so where people can, follow the band if they want to buy the music. Do you have it on vinyl?
Yes.
So if
Yes.
people want it on vinyl, they can get on vinyl or CDs. Do you have cassettes? Because it's a big thing now. People are making cassettes as well.
We don't have cassettes, but I've heard, I don't know. I've got to talk to the label, but they may do some cassettes on the next record.
Yeah,
Because I've heard the same thing. Everybody's getting back into cassettes now.
You should distinguish yourself by putting it out on an 8-track.
Yeah, there you go. But can you imagine?
Young people will be like, "What the fuck is an 8-track?
Yeah, what the hell is an 8-track? Yeah, I mean, I'm surprised you even said that. I was like, wow, I haven't heard anybody talk about that in years.
My grandfather had 8-tracks, so I remember. And the vinyl, I actually inherited some of his vinyl that he had because I started collecting.
Man.
And I have some old like flamenco albums, like classical music on vinyl, different things. So yeah, I think people are afraid of streaming, but people will still want to have like a physical thing. At least the people who really love music.
Yes.
If you're a casual listener, that maybe not, but people who really like music sometimes want it physical.
Yeah, our record company said that. They said that the last record would have done better if they'd had vinyl out. We didn't do vinyl on the last record. And if it did, it came much later. But this one was a big deal because when we put the record together, we had to pick certain songs to make it fit. You can only put so many songs on vinyl, and so it sounds good. And so we had to rearrange the order of songs, and certain songs had to be bonus tracks on a CD. And so I love that. Because all the records I used to make, I mean, I remember going to mastering and watching them cut a record right there in front of me on a lathe.
Yeah.
And great memories.
I'm sure. Yeah. We could be here talking for hours, but I think people support Alcatrazz. If you like, I would say, if you haven't heard of Alcatrazz, if you like old school heavy metal, you will dig Alcatrazz because it has that sound that you're familiar with and a great rocking tune. So catch them on tour. They're gonna be on tour they have rest of
Forever.
this year. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's what these bands do. So Jimmy, again, have a great day, and
Thank you.
until next time, people. This is Hector, the Shield Dude on a couch, and I'll see you all right here on the couch.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Hector.
And
Okay.